All right, so yes, we'll be getting to our guest in a moment, but as you may have seen in that report, some concerns raised about so many items, the matters that were debated on the floor, and then, of course, as expected, you always had different perspectives concerning what they thought about how Nigerians have been treated in China, the National Quarantine Act of 2004, what becomes of the powers that are going to be given to the NCDC for vaccines. Well, let's get to them now. We've got two of them, Honorable Uzoma Kemabonta, former Chairman, House Committee on Public Accounts, as well as Honorable Benjamin Mzondu, who is also a member of the House of Reps. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on the program. Let me start with you, Honorable Abonta. You had reservations about the National Quarantine Act of 2004. Could you tell us about it?
Oh, yeah, sure. Good morning. I have serious reservations and concerns to raise. My worry is that the Quarantine Act, as we're operating now, is also encompassing and was designed to take care of emergencies and situations like this. However, the act sought to be repealed now and reintroduced in a different name seems to grant so much powers to the operators of the disease control, to the extent that if done the way couched, we may all lose our rights to a lot of things. More so, in this present time that we are being, there are several postulations and teachings and all what about the world new order and all concerns and all whatnot. I do not think that that act will address our COVID problem, particularly in the short term. What we need now is what will help us solve this problem in the shortest possible time. Assuming, not consenting, that President Buhari signed that bill yesterday, will that end COVID? No. So how can you now give somebody a right, for example, to immunize us at will, to give us vaccinations, whether I want it or not? The act proposed went, or the bill as proposed, went too far in giving so much powers to the NCDC that they can say that the whole channel is now quarantined. Nobody comes in or out, depending on how he thinks. And you have no objection. The act also said they can introduce measures and all whatnot. I object particularly to section 3, 6, 8, 15, 30 of the proposed bill. They are dangerously couched that if it's allowed to go on, then all these scandals we are hearing on networks and all whatnot about Bill Gates and their vaccination and chips and so on appears to be a reality. Because the speed too, which we came for, that's why I said that direction is better than speed. We try to jump rules, even though the rules were suspended, which is also normal in cases like that, to do first, second, third consideration on a particular day, as contained in our order paper. I said no, the speed looks as if there could be things in it. I do not consent, in as much as we do not want disease, that somebody should be given right and powers to seize me at any point in time and give me vaccinations that I do not want, that I don't intend to, and so on. We should have a say. That is why I was of great concern that we could not do a 55-page document within 2 hours and pass it. Legislators should be allowed to look at it, go home and digest it, and then come out with a proper opinion. And if possible, do a public hearing and hear what the experts, what the public, what the people whom we are representing, what are their views. In fact, if you are doing a bill, are you not supposed to refer back to your constituency? What do you think I should do on this and so on and so on? So on.
All right, because we know that when that point was raised, there were responses to it as well. But pardon me, we'll come back to that in a moment. But Honorable Nzondu, are those valid concerns for you?
Yeah. Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigerians. Those concerns are valid. As members of the House of Reps, there was no form of inclusiveness. We know that drafters of B can have 1 or 2 issues. They might not be comprehensively correct. Inputs of members are needed. But our major concern yesterday was 4th, 2nd, and even the 3rd reading, we had no access to the details of the bill. You know, the Quarantine Act is long overdue for repeal. And the leader of the House, which is the ordinary person of His Excellency, the Speaker, thought it wise to bring up this matter because it has become overdue to have this act repealed. That is very correct. And the person of the Speaker is also a very learned and very high personality in the country. And he brought up this bill, but for want of one or two logistics, the document was not made available to members to look at it and look at the clause by clause and then bring in valid inputs. This is a bill we are making for the future of Nigeria. And as a result of that, a lot of members had concern. Myself, I had concern that, look, this document, we need to look at it, look at the clause by clause, particularly with the issue of the public perception, the vaccine chip certificate and all of that. What is in the public space now, we must be careful what we do. This Quarantine Act, is the one we are operating now, is a colonial document made since 1951. And if we have to repeal it with a new document, we have to consider that document very carefully. So that not that a bill is passed and then after 1 week we are coming up with amendments here and there. And like Honorable Agbonta rightly said, we got hold on the document yesterday, and the document seems to confer so much authority in NCDC, in giving them so much powers in vaccination, which is what they should have, but there should be certain consideration and there should be some twittering here and there. And these are the concerns we have. The bill is okay, it's a good bill, but there are certain clauses, like you mentioned, clause 6, 13, 8, 30, and then 15. Some of these powers that have been conferred on the director of NCDC is enormous, particularly with the public perception. Yes, the House can suspend its rules to come up with legislation in 1 day. Yes, you heard of the economic stimulus bill. We passed it in 1 day, trying to bring relief and succor to Nigerians. This act was also meant to do that, but it is not an act that will address the immediate challenge of COVID-19 as we have it in Nigeria.
Right. Honorable Mzondo, just you mentioned, pardon me, you mentioned that you didn't get a chance to see this first, second, third reading. And it begs the question, how did this bill go that long? How was it even introduced in the first place to get up to this moment, and then you just got to see it yesterday?
Very few persons in the House members had copies of the bill, which was listed and went through the first reading. Of course, the second reading is where we debate most of the bills before it is passed. Copies were not made. Some members had, some members didn't have. And we raised concerns that, no, we should have these bills. We should look at the document. A 55-page document, a lot of things could be hidden in there which we don't know. And if we pass these bills, what do we take back to our constituencies? We're right there when this bill was passed. What do we tell them? And that was our major concern, that we will not sacrifice the quality of this bill on the altar of speed. And we wanted it very clear to the leadership that we want to see the document before it is passed. And good enough for us, our leadership, who is also listening, suspended the third reading of the bill so that members can have copies and consider the bill.
Honorable Nkemabonta, you've talked about some of the issues you have. I understand that this is a tricky one because on one hand, you want to empower the NCDC to deal with this and perhaps future occurrences of pandemics, epidemics, and what have you. But then you're also being cautious here, so you don't give too much power. So how are you going to maintain this balance that you empower the NCDC enough, but maybe not too much?
One, you can power NCDC sufficiently to do the needful in terms of this and prevention and taking control. For example, Section 30 of that proposed bill, or the bill, gives them right to enforce you to vaccination for you to operate in Nigeria, and in fact, you must have international certificate of your vaccination before you can deal and transact. And I think that is dangerous in the things we see being postulated now and being circulated. But again, we've had several pandemics and all whatnot. Right now, will I say they are doing badly? No, they are still handling it. But a situation whereby you give them absolute control, where they can declare you unfit, or declare a building unfit, or declare a person to undergo a particular kind of treatment without bothering whether the person wants to or otherwise. it will be dangerous in future. You don't do a thing because you think you will do it. We also hear, and I'm sure you must have heard, that the so-called vaccines are not what will be tested in Africa, in Nigeria. I became afraid. Say, come, can this be the beginning? No doubt, we need current laws to take care of situations.
Did they say that?
No doubt, we want to.
Is this supposed to be for COVID-19 vaccination or for future cases?
All vaccinations as this may come. Vaccination is vaccination. He said the NCDC and the minister will determine the control and stoppage of disease. So if they deem fit that you need vaccine XYZ, they put it on you. If they deem fit that you need a chip to monitor what sickness you get, they put it on you by going by the language of if they say there's a specific even COVID-19 or whatever they call it, vaccination, then it's also subject
that
to
about
review.
the chip.
You see, one baffling thing is that the whole coronavirus or whatever appears to be mysterious, not known, uncertain. We are yet to even understand what
Honorable Abanta, are you sure you're not letting that impression get the best of you when you talk about the certain chip? Is there any such phrase in that particular bill?
Any such what?
Any such phrase about a chip put on you, because it appears as though that's your main concern.
No. They say vaccination. That you be asked to take vaccination and show evidence of certificate. When you do yellow, and show evidence of certificate before you can maybe travel, transact, and stuff like that. You see, my worry is we need to look at it and get public opinion of people like you, like others, to tell us, do you want them to force us to vaccination? Do you want, I mean, like we need to understand, we need to know, we need to balance it, we need to read it, digest it, and look at it with the current issues in the world. Let me ask you, what is this postulation about new economic order? New world order? What does that all mean? What is this propaganda about international and national and whatever vaccine? I may also ask, what is the sole deal? Why are we so obsessed about this vaccine and vaccinations and so on? Is that the only cure for COVID-19?
Honorable Nkema, are you saying you're basing your perspective on propaganda? Because you said it, that have we heard about that propaganda? Are you basing it on propaganda, conspiracy theories, or on facts?
I do not base propaganda. I'm a lawyer. I don't propagate, but I'm saying what is currently going on. I'm not just a scientist. What is going on about this COVID-19? We need to know it. But is this bill of vaccination the only way out? So tell me, Chamberlain and Co, can I know, is this vaccination the only way? Because like my colleague said, a lot of things is written in here. But again, is it possible to hide something there? What is the main purpose of what they're asking for? Section 30. I don't know. I'm averse to it. And again, members having these things, we had to go extra mile to get it at the close of a sitting yesterday. That's all we did. So it is copious. It needs our attention, our input, and reaction from people who represent, like you. What is the big deal in the speed? I agree. We can, but I do not think. That's why I said that speed is inferior to directions. We must have proper directions, proper guidance before we fast track and run on speed. We could miss it. In any case, if you look at the totality of the bill, yes, it has increased and enlarged the powers of any commission to monitor diseases and so on, so they can define what is a disease. But the power is so much that only them can define what is communicable disease, what is dangerous, and all what not. So they should balance it, like my colleague said, in a way that you can have a say, you can even litigate, you can even ask for, you can a third party to see. So person who don't like your voice now at channels and we are, you should be quarantined, and the minister so decrees.
Well,
what will you do?
I'm sure that is the way that it's supposed to work, because don't forget, they are professionals in that field, so it's going to be based on their professional judgment as well. And then, if I let me even ask Honorable Nzomdu, what basis, because we just heard him give his own basis for his reservations, what is yours, particularly when it has to do with vaccination and then the powers that the NCDC is supposed to have? What were the basis of your own concern?
the basis here has to do with, for us to pass a document, we need to know what is in the document. Like I told you, we did not have access to the document. And the fact that we did not have access to the document before the passage of that bill gave us concerns that, would there be something that we ought to know that we are not being told? That was one of the major concerns we had. Having looked at the Act, overnight we tried to study some of the phrases in the Act. Like you rightly said, the powers of the NCDC, they are enormous. The powers are enormous. Some medical professional bodies should have also been included in the Act. This Act is not just a document you do overnight and it will not solve this Chinese virus. The Chinese virus have been shredded in a lot of international politics and here and there. We've heard so many things like the vaccine chips and certificate. And then we are coming back after 1 month of recess. And then we want to pass an act in a day. And we don't have that document in our possessions to look at it. Even if it were you, Chamberlain, you have reservations, particularly that we represent people. We carry people's mandate. We should be able to go home and tell them this is what the act is all about. This is what we passed. And then have confidence in what we do. But if we don't have access to this document, and if this document, if yesterday the speaker decided to go ahead because the second reading had gone and then went ahead to pass it, and then we come back and see that the NCDC has been empowered so much. We know period before now that NCDC had limited powers, access to funding, access to vaccination, and stuff like this. They didn't have such powers. Of course, the Act now empowers them to do more of this. And when you look about vaccination, there is a lot of international politics now on the G5 telecom infrastructure that is also part of the conspiracy. There's a lot of international wrangling here and there. And when an act comes up like that, of course, the first thing we have is the fear. What is in the act? Well, the 55-page document, even if you gave it to us yesterday, it would have been difficult for us to digest it properly.
It does appear as though, I mean, I'm just thinking if your fears are based on some of those that you have heard, because, I mean, I don't know if they've been validated by professionals in that field, because we've heard the NCC, the Communications Commission, speak about some of these things, but I'm not sure you actually take that full, on full value, given that they are professional submissions from those authorities. Because if you say those conspiracy theories, are you suggesting then that those who moved the motion may have been working with conspiracy theorists on that matter?
No, that's not what we are saying. What we are saying is that the public perception out there, the social media has been awash with this.
Talking about your perception, you are the lawmaker.
Like it or
you
not, you
know
give
better. You should know better.
Yes, but we didn't have access to the document. And what you don't have access to, you are ignorant of it. No matter how much you think you know, the access you need to have to that information, once you don't have that access, then you are ignorant. And your ignorance can lead you to take so many decisions that may lead you to regret or begin to go and tell stories to your constituency. This is what you did. You didn't have access to this. And then the question, why didn't you wait to have access to that document? So we are not saying that the conspiracy theories are correct, but we are also saying that the social media have been awash. The average Nigerians have been awash that there is a theory out there. We are not saying the theory is correct, but of course you know that China is not having the best of time with the other nations of the world as well, because of so much information that were shredded as the origin and even how they conducted their affairs in the running of this COVID-19 when it came up. In fact, for me, I prefer to call it the Spanish virus.
Okay. Honorable, let's explore this. Well, we know there are so many things that
what is the Chinese virus?
This, but one moment. Let me take this to Honorable Kemabonta. One of the things that you also discussed on the floor yesterday, perhaps related, is the status of Chinese nationals in Nigeria and Nigerian African nationals in China. How far with that, and what are your expectations as members of the House of Representatives?
You see, the Nigerian-China relationship ought to be reviewed. If you had followed in the recent times all the Chinese-Nigerian relationship and agreements you will have concern. Your telecom now, including you now, is controlled by China. Your transport is controlled by China. Your seaports are controlled by China. Your railway is controlled by China. How many Chinese are in Nigeria, you do not know. We have no record. What business and what do they do, you do not know. You are aware of what's happening in Africa, Zambia, Uganda, Kenya, all whatnot. It's Nigerian exception. Are we ready to be colonized again? Tell me. So that motion came at the proper time. What we are saying is, let us redefine this relationship so that we can balance it, so that we do not lose out, so we don't become slaves to anybody, so we don't become passing another colonial period again. What independence do you have if you don't have economic independence, if you can't stand on your own? Let me ask you, panel. We also know that at
just one moment. Let me ask you something, a quick follow-up on the question that you just raised now. Do you lay the blame, or do you lay the blame of not knowing the number of Chinese nationals in Nigeria on the Chinese or on our own systems?
It cannot be on Chinese, on our system. The system is not efficient. The system is porous. There's no database. Can you go to America without them knowing you are India? No. How come you are in Nigeria? The people are in Nigeria who don't know the number of persons in Nigeria and what they do. I do not blame Chinese. They came here, we admitted them, we allowed them. So we need to have records. We need to beef up. We should do what we ought to do. That's the word by diversion for what we're talking actually. So Nigerians should sit up. In fact, in Nigeria, you know, just as I also know, that there are no records. I had a matter, I was going to ask immigration, can you give me the status of this territory? They had no idea. CAC had no idea at all about the company and all whatnot, what they do, the shareholdings. I mean, it is not good for our economy. It's not good for our person. That is why that motion came up, and it went through. But coming back to what we are discussing on that bill, I still not say we are not acting on propaganda. We are not basing our argument or objections on propaganda. We are based on reality. Why will Nigeria even be the first to come rush up with such a bill to accept vaccination that is having controversy internationally, that will read a lot of postulations and that is not propaganda. For me, I'm saying we should even be the last to adopt it, to go by it. More so that they're saying that the test will start from Africa with packages. In most recent times, which if we've propagated through this channel, most of the gifts have been tied to such things. I've seen channel showcase such things, that this gift, this grant, this aid. When we talked about gay marriages and so on, America threatened to withdraw aids if we don't buy into it. You propagated it very well through their system here. So, because we need the money, we should accept gay marriages. So now, we also told some people are commercializing vaccination to this. So therefore, we should rush buy into it now without understanding it. I mean, we should give time to labs. And they've not told us this vaccination that NCD can have power to put or give is for COVID-19. We've not been told that. We've been told that they have powers to stop diseases and control it and all whatnot. Like my colleague said, you should expand it to have other medical association and other paramedical groups.
All right, Honorable, just give us a moment. We will come and conclude this just a couple of more minutes so that we can hear from maybe one or two of the other people who are involved in this matter. So just hold on. We'll be back in a moment.